AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota, the Matt McNeil Show. Brand new to you edition. Paul Metsa is joining us for this full freaking hour. As a matter of fact, pardon me, Paul freaking Metsa's here for an hour, okay? Living legend of Minnesota music. Just an absolute treat to talk with every time I've had him on. I had you on a lot here because, yeah, just a slacker year for you. 2 books, 2 books, a major show, revisiting the Jack Ruby song on the 60th. My God, you've done so many things this last year. It's just been amazing.
Well, it's I love doing what I do. You know, that's the bottom line. And I run my own life, and I have slacker sensibilities like the rest of us out there.
Yeah.
But most of the time, I'm getting things done, and it makes it all worthwhile.
You are, I want to make sure, of course, you're down here right now. We're recording this live in studio, which is great to see you, my friend. You, of course, you take residence up in Duluth there. I want to start off with one of the most underrated holiday towns in this country, Duluth, Minnesota. It's cold, it's a little windy, but that town is just fun in Christmas time.
Oh yeah, and Bentleyville's the big thing. In fact, I've got my nephew Jason, who was you might have bumped into him. He was the state rep for 6B. Mm-hmm. He followed Tommy, the late great Tommy Rocavina, bringing his 2 boys down. So Uncle Paul, nephew Jason, and his 2 kids are going to go do Bentleyville here probably in the next handful of days. So.
I think there's interesting because it's a town. My dad almost said it to me one time. The worst accident he never got into was in Duluth. He was at the top of the hill. It must have rained, and he just started going down, and physics started to kick in, and he realized, I can't stop this car.
Right.
And I'm picking up speed. By the grace of God, no one hit any of the intersections at the same time. He went through, finally got to a point lower down on the hill where they'd cleared some of it and was able to put the brakes on. But, it's kind of one of those places where winter there is so obnoxious and it can be bad. But at the same time, I think that's the case. That some of the best holiday cities are cities there where they say, this is what we are. We're going to go out and have a good time with this.
Yeah, and you had to, you've got to get used to driving. I found out the best way in a snowstorm, you go east and west, not up and down.
Yeah.
And in fact, there's I think I told you this, when the first year I lived there, I rented the first floor of Bob Dylan's childhood home, which did not anymore have a garage. So when I knew I was there for about a year, and I was going to start looking for a house. And first thing you want is the lake view. Second thing I needed was a yard with a fence for the dog. After a year without a garage, I said, "Screw the lake view. I need a garage."
You do get your priorities set there because it's there's a practical, well, and that's Minnesota. It's a practicality over existence. I like the downtown. I told you I've gone up there a bunch of times now. My daughter's going to UMD, and I've been up there a lot. I'm going to be back up there in January. I'm going to be up there probably in February, and it was shockingly cute how nice that town is. And there are people that every town has some problems, and I'm not going to say the town doesn't have some problems. There's always grit. It always is there. But compared to how the town used to be, it's kind of one of those things where it's like, people get upset about in Minneapolis. They say, oh, Minneapolis is bad. It's like, do you remember what Minneapolis was like in the 80s? It was dirty and gritty, and there was block after block of empty. There was empty parking lots everywhere. There wasn't any reason to come down. Now you got tons of people living down there. What do you mean it's worse? It's a lot better than it was. It just is. I think that, there's a lot of people that like to be negative for negative's sake. And I'm like, I look around, I'm like, gosh, this place is cute. I like it here.
Well, I moved into town in 78, and I've had a problem with people that saying, over the years before they redid Block E, Block E is so dangerous. Not for me. I mean, I lived in South right by a great little street called Ridgewood Avenue behind Rudolph's Barbecue.
Yeah.
And I walked downtown, stumbled home. But you get down to Block E, and you had like the legendary lineup down there off 7th. You had Moby Dick's. You had Brady's Bar. And there was about 4 or 5 bars just in that block. But the thing was, you still had riffraff downtown, but you had bouncers standing outside of each of those bars. So nobody got together in groups and caused anybody's problem. They just kept moving the riffraff along. And, once you got inside the club, you were safe. Now, it's funny. My first big gig in downtown Minneapolis with the Cats Under the Stars, we played at Moby Dick's. They had just put in a new stage and a new lighting system. And I remember the guy, I think his name is Bobby Gold. He had, it was just classic bar owner, bad perm, lapel down and just above, open to just above the navel, hairy chest with the necklace. And he's going, he's looking at our press because he says, what is this Red J music? What is this Red J? I go, it's reggae. We played some reggae. And he goes, well, here's the stage. You can put all your lights around here. And we had just gotten started. I go, Bobby, I said, it's no big deal. We just have one light. But anyway, and it was if you love foosball, that was foosball ground zero in Minnesota. There one time was probably 30 or 40 foosball tables. Anyway, they painted it and cleaned it up and everything. And I was in the restroom and doing my thing, and standing next to this old black guy. And there was in the restroom, nothing had changed, man. There was drugs changing hands. You'd see a flash of a knife or maybe a pistol or whatever. And this old brother is looking at the wall and says to no one in particular, he says, well, he says, you can remodel the bar, he said, but you can't remodel the people.
Well, and bless them that you did. I went to school down on East Lake, so I had Town Talk Diner and the Poodle Club. You have Poodle Club? You ever get over to the Poodle Club?
Been to the Poodle Club, yeah. We used to do yearly Halloween gigs at Oddfellows Hall.
Yeah. I would go, I was at Brown, going the radio school.
It was right around the corner.
Yeah, well, and we had the one over on 55 and Lake, and then they had the other building that they had opened up, and that was right across the street. And so, like, in between classes, we'd run over and get that god-awful biscuits and gravy and a beer, the little mini beers, and we'd have those and head back to class because that was Minneapolis. But I always loved Town Talk, because that was like a restaurant that was designed not for customers, because they had one booth that could fit maybe a half of a human being, and then they had the 4 booths there, and everyone in there was this elderly Scandinavian South Minneapolis guy ordering walleye, because it was one of the few places in town you could get fish with your eggs.
Wow.
And they all loved it, and they'd come in, there was just a flannel shop.
Right.
And so you'd go in there and do that. But I also remember down in Uptown, when Uptown was gritty. And that when the Walgreens used to be there, we used to go up on the roof of Walgreens because you could sneak up on the roof there and just hang up there all night long. It was a lot of fun up there.
Well, I loved Lake Street too. When I moved to Minneapolis, before I moved, I lived in 77 for about 6 months at 24th and Bloomington. Yeah. And back then, the cafe right off on Lake right up Bloomington was Curly's Cafe. Yeah. At one of the best breakfasts, and they were open till about 3 a.m. Now, on the other side, then when I moved over to Ridgewood, it was a beautiful for young, starving rock bands because you had Taco Tuesdays at the Rainbow, which was a wonderful restaurant. Yes. Wednesday nights, you went to Liquor Lyle's, and you got the big block of government cheese and free chicken wings. And then on Thursday, if you had a few bucks, you had half-price oysters on the half shell at the Green Mill.
Oh, God. You got, one that we did all the time, dollar dog days at the Old Dome.
Oh, yeah.
Like if you were really hungry, dollar dog, you just had to pay $3 to go watch a bad Twins team, but then you get the hot dog, and you actually could eat and get a show. It was like in the days before internet, we actually had entertainment like that. There was character there that it kind of is lost, and I think that there's a tendency for people to look at this and kind of like the bad side. When the problems in Minneapolis, when they existed, happened in the empty spots. Yeah. They didn't happen at Grumpy's. They didn't happen down on the south end of Lake Street or on Hennepin Avenue down there towards the Basilica. It didn't happen there. It happened in those parking lots or where the Kohl Center is now on 6 or across from Hennepin, where that was an empty lot. There was always problems over there. Yeah. It's the problem isn't the places. The problem was the empty places.
Yeah. Well, I never felt afraid anywhere in Minneapolis, but I do have to, because I drove by it yesterday. I always got a kick out of Mortimer's, and I was wondering if the sign is still there, and it is. And so I drove by, and it says Mortimer's. It's an old big plastic sign. It was there in 1978. says Mortimer's Bar and Restaurant. Now, when you go in, you go to try to order some food, you'd go, well, where's the restaurant? They'd go across the street and they'd point at Rudolph's. You could occasionally get a hot dog there, but it wasn't a restaurant.
One of the things I love about Minnesota in winter is you've seen the old pictures of like Hibbing in Virginia.
Oh,
and
yeah.
stuff, the Christmas. God, they used to put the show on, didn't they?
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, in Virginia, I was just up there last week playing at Flamers, and they still do a nice job. But, yeah, I mean, over the years, it was really winter wonderland. Mm-hmm. And Duluth doesn't quite do it like it used to back when it was the city of the North. You know, we'd come down from the range to go to the Christmas parade, and it was like, you know, Duluth to an Iron Ranger was like Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. You know, that was the big city. In fact, my mom and dad met there. There's a great story. My dad's going to UMD Teachers College. My mom's going to St. Luke's Nursing School, mm-hmm. and she's staying at the St. Luke's Women's Dormitory. Well, my dad was a bit of a dog with his buddies and just loved to chase women. In fact, they used to put their skates on and go from rink to rink to try to meet girls. And if they didn't see any girls at one rink, they'd keep their skates on, hop in their car, and drive to the next. Now, and this is, you got to remember, all these cars had clutches back then.
Yeah.
And they're driving with their skates on. Anyway, he has the number of a woman he met. We'll say her name is Nancy, who's a St. Luke's nursing student. She's living at the women's dormitory. My dad, Elder, calls up and says, hey, is Nancy there? My mom, Bess, happened to be, whose name was Bess Paul. Her maiden name is my first name. So she happened to be working the phones that night. So he goes, yeah, is Nancy there? And she goes, no, she's out for the night. And he goes, what's your name? She goes, Bess. He goes, what time do you get off work? He goes, 9 o'clock. She goes, 9 o'clock. My dad said, can I buy you a beer at the Casa de Roma after your shift? She said, yeah. That's how my mom and dad met, on kind of a blind date.
By the way, this is a lesson for all you modern guys out there. Stop sending pictures to DMs, okay? Just talk to people. Talk to people, for goodness sake. How badly did they carve up the clutch with the skates?
Well, back then, my dad said there used to be 5 or 6 rinks that they would hit a night.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, I can only imagine. It was their car or their dad's car?
It was his best buddy's dad was a doctor from Cook, Minnesota, so I believe it was, his name was Bud Heim. It was probably Bud's dad's car.
Oh, God. Okay, that's brilliant.
And then my dad also used to, in college, he was always kind of an entrepreneur, and he used to sell silverware and knives. And he would go over to Superior where there was more than one lady of the night. Mm-hmm. And he would go to these different places where those women plied their trade. And they would always go, well, Elder, maybe we could do a trade here for some of that nice cutlery. And according to my dad, he said, no, you've got to pay for this stuff.
I said to my dad, because we have a sauna up at our cabin, and so it's actually my great aunt's dollhouse that they had in the yard.
Oh, beautiful! And
then they moved it out to the cabin, and they basically sealed it off and put a furnace in there, and so it's a wood burning sauna that we have up there. Beautiful. It's fantastic. And so I was like, when I was in Duluth, and I'd see saunas. And I'd say, hey, Dad, saunas, look at this. Like, Dad's like, no, not these saunas. Maybe when you're in college, son, you know. That's the case. The only one that was a little more legit was Biwabik with the sauna bar. They had that one over there.
That was legit. But I know which sauna. It was the family sauna. I believe it was, about 2nd, right off a block and a half off Superior Street. But I remember I knew a buddy of mine who's got a business. He owns a bar in Duluth, and he said, he goes, Dad would pick us up after our hockey games after school. He'd run to the sauna, and he'd keep the car running so we could stay warm. Because he'd run in for about 20 minutes and came back out with a smile on his face. We had no idea what he was up to.
So we went on one of the greatest moments ever on the Christmas. Was Christmas Eve. We're over at Squagma, and so we're kind of by Gilbert and Biwabik. And we say, well, we want to go into town, but we didn't want to drive. It was like minus 20. Right. It was cold. Well, my brother says, well, there's a thing called the Biwabik bus. And so we could call the bar sauna and have the Biwabik bus come on out. So the bus comes up.
That's primo Iron Range, dude.
It just comes on out, beer bottles rolling all over the floor of this bus, back and forth, as it takes us out to Biwabik. We're there for about 2 hours. And by the way, I've got it, I know what it takes to be the band playing Bawabik's Bar Sauna on a Christmas Eve. Not the tightest band I've ever seen in my life.
Although I played Bawabik on New Year's Eve, but it was a little nicer club.
Well, it was New Year's there. So we're there. We're saying, where's my brother? Where's my brother at? He comes out, he's sweating. He's been in the sauna fully clothed because there's a girl in there. I was talking like, okay, you were trying to pick up a girl on Christmas Eve in the sauna, in the Biwabik Bar Sauna.
Fully clothed.
Get the bus. We're going back to that. We're done. Yeah, he was soaked. I said, do you realize this is how people die up here?
I played in Ely, Minnesota, at a place called the Yugoslav National Home. It was a cool private club, cost $2 a year to join. And it was the year that it broke the record for cold. It was 60 below without a wind chill. And I was introduced to a drink up there called Palinkovitz, which was a cross between Jägermeister and Turpentine. But it steeled us because the people didn't leave till about 2 or 3 in the morning. I mean, they were literally, the television station from Duluth came up and they were pounding frozen bananas through 2x4s. But there was an old Finlander in Embarrass. And when, over the years on the Today Show, the icebox of the nation usually most of the time was Embarrass, Minnesota. And it was this guy, this old Finlander, that manned the thermometer. That year, Tower beat Embarrass by a degree or 2. So it was, and that poor Finlander went to his grave bitching about the fact it was the TV cameras that heated up the thermometer and Embarrass.
Oh, God, that's so Minnesota. It's pounding bananas through 2x4s. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a family show. All right. Speaking of which, Christmas. You've got your great Christmas song, Christmas at Molly's. Talk a little bit about that.
1990, I got a phone call from Southdale. They were celebrating the 25th anniversary of the Southdale Mall, first open-air mall in America. And they were putting together a song of original Christmas music by Minnesota artists, and they had somebody drop out. They called me on a Tuesday afternoon. They needed by Wednesday at 5. And so they're talking to me, and I'm going, Southdale. I said, I'm Woody Guthrie. Why are you calling me? But before the phone call ended, I said, well, by the way, what does it pay? And they go, $2,500. I said, I think I have one around here somewhere.
Oh, those Edina people. Oh, they're fantastic.
So I have, I have a list of song ideas on envelopes, electrical bills, more than a dozen or two whiskey stained bar napkins. And about 2 years before, I was at Molly's Bar in Superior on Christmas, and I had written down, because it was a kind of an absurd night, Christmas at Molly's. There were 2 good friends of mine, both have passed away, John Hall and Dick Blinn. So I grabbed my guitar, started working on it, and the next thing I knew, by about 10 a.m. the next morning, I had a 12-verse song that was really kind of explained the spirit of Christmas, called Christmas at Molly's. Now, the thing about Molly's Bar, which was interesting, I used to go up there after I played in Duluth, because Superior was always open an hour later, the bars. And I tell people when I was on KUMD up there, meet us at Molly's after the bar, because Molly was this lovely. She was, 80 years old at the time, but she was like this gypsy woman, and she would sit at the end of the bar and dispense like this gypsy wisdom, and you could buy her a very expensive shot of brandy. Expensive in Superior was about $3.50 or $4. And but it was one of the first gay bars in the Twin Ports. Now, it was kind of, hush-hush at the time. So finally somebody said, well, most people up here consider it a gay bar. Of course, not that mattered to me at all. Of course, by then it had been, anybody that wanted to go there could go. But but you walk back, it was like walking back in time. They had a beautiful, like, Barnum and Bailey's metal circus advertisement they used to put on buildings, and the old tin ceiling. And it was just a great way. The song kind of wrote itself. It turned out to be one of my most beloved songs. Everybody requested it at Christmas, and also one of my claims to fame was it ended up at the jukebox at Molly's and was played constantly over the Christmas season.
Brett, if you wouldn't mind, let's play that right now. Christmas at Molly's, Paul Metsa, right here on AM 950.
24th of December is a stranger I walk like I just lost the keys to this city. As a sailor I've sent postcards round the world, but the picture tonight wasn't pretty. I walked in the shadows of haunted hotels like a miner trapped in a cavern. Well, I looked to the east and a star it shone down, and it led me right to Molly's Tavern. So I followed the footprints made in the snow by Salvation Army musicians. I got in line and I stood right behind a tap dancer and two blind magicians. You would have thought I had been there before as Molly stood there to greet me. 80 years old with a gleam in her eye, said you're expected and proceeded to seat me. Come on, ye low down rounders, lift up your low down ways, pass the malt and the mistletoe, it's almost Christmas Day. I walked around and the harp player asked if I would like to request a selection. I smiled and I asked for God bless the child, and for him I took up a collection. I spotted a man with a white beard and red, from a distance looked just like Kris Kringle. As he went to the roof, oh, I thought I heard hoofs, and I swear I heard sleigh bells a jingle. We waltzed on a dance floor made out of glass. Between dances we sang Christmas carols. Then we lit candles, had a moment of silence. The bartender read F. Scott Fitzgerald. Molly said first we must give to receive. We put our trinkets into a kitty. In went my compass and my grandfather's watch, and I pulled out the key to the city. Come all ye low down rounders, lift up your low down ways, pass the malt and the mistletoe, it's almost Christmas Day. And so I guess if there's a lesson I've learned, it is one that will keep me from danger. Sometimes you get lost just so you will be found, and return the kindness to strangers. I explained how I felt as I kissed Molly's hand, like a miner freed from a cavern. Merry Christmas, baby, is what she said to me, but it's like this each night in my tavern. So I sail on the oceans and stare at the sky, and it seems like the whole world's on fire. And I just want to make angel wings in the snow and sing this song in that midnight choir. Come on, ye low down rounders, lift up.
Christmas time at Molly's. Paul Metsa will take a break. Come on back. It is the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.
Pass the malt and the mistletoe, it's almost Christmas Day. It's almost Christmas Day. It's almost Christmas Day. It's almost Christmas Day.
It's the Matt McNeil Show. Brand new to you content. Paul Metsa joining us for the full hour. By the way, you just heard Christmas at Molly's from Paul Metsa, and that song sponsored by Southdale. Thanks, Southdale. We really appreciate it. That's a fantastic song, man.
Thank you. Yeah, it worked out really well, and you know, the best songs really write themselves, and that one truly did. Although I spent most of the end of the night to do it, it came naturally. But the one thing I'm very proud of that song, several things I'm proud of. Number one, to honor Molly. In fact, there's a great video we did for it that people can find on YouTube. It's Christmas at Molly's, Paul Metsa, and we found some really nice vintage photos of Superior, Wisconsin, and of Molly. You know, Molly lived to be 99 years old. She was born on Valentine's Day. Her sister, who I always wanted to meet, they were very close in age, was a jazz singer. She went out to New York City and she got involved with the mob. So she worked all the time, you know. She worked all the time, but in mob, you know, run clubs. But David Carr, the great, you know, I remember meeting David Carr when he was writing for the Twin Cities Reader and the City Pages, and he'd written a great series of articles in the Minneapolis Tribune about a woman who was executed by a gang. They found her in that park kind of right by kind of 42nd, right off Nicollet. And it was a really intriguing article, one that you just you waited for the next week's installment. And I was sitting at McCready's bar one night where I ended up playing with my buddy Tom Arnold. And so Tom said, "Hey, I'd like to meet my friend David." So I went over and said, "Yeah, David." I said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm a writer." I said, "What's your last name?" He goes, "Carr." I said, "You are David freaking Carr?" And I was so in love with his writing and continued to, you know, read him for whatever publication he was writing for. And then he ended up, the last 10 years of his life, writing the media column for the New York Times. In fact, and he passed away in the New York Times newsroom after doing an event at the 92nd Street Y. But the publisher of the New York Times said at his memorial service in New York City that he considered David one of the greatest writers the New York Times had ever employed. And which, number one, didn't surprise me. But number two, I was honored to have David Carr write the foreword to my book, Blue Guitar Highway. And in that foreword, he wrote great 8 pages. I was tears reading it when we finally got it back. But he said of all the Metsa songs that he's heard, he heard almost all of them, Christmas at Molly's was his favorite.
It is a fantastic song, and it is a great holiday song too. There's a lot of meaning, there's a lot of depth, but I think that's what makes great Christmas songs.
Yeah,
is it's more than just it is kind of a little bit more than that. You came on the show early this year to talk about your last book, Blood in the Tracks.
Yeah,
and then talking about the recording of that album and the fights to kind of get that album out. So you are as you said, you lived in Dylan's house.
Yeah,
you are a Dylan expert. I mean, really, you could be one of those people that puts on those 92nd Street Y and puts you on the panel up there to talk about Dylan.
Well, I love Dylan's a passion of mine. Like some people love baseball.
Oh yeah, right.
Like I got friends of mine that are into baseball, and they could tell you what Joe DiMaggio hit 1952.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'm guilty as charged on baseball, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm one of those nerds and stuff like that. They're going to be a biopic about him coming on out with Timothée Chalamet, and I love this. How much Timothée Chalamet have you seen? You have any idea who he is?
Zip.
Okay. He's a great choice. Okay, so here's the two things I'll say that are positive about Timothée Chalamet in this. One, he actually is a pretty good actor.
Right.
He actually is. If you do see some of his stuff, he's a young guy, but he actually can act. And the second thing is this. It's like, okay, if Taylor Swift decided to do a bunch of Dylan songs,
right,
it might basically drive most Dylan fans crazy.
Right.
But you're about to see Dylan's popularity within this younger set grow.
I'm all for
Timothée
that.
Chalamet is going to bring a brand new generation into Dylan's legacy, and as it should be. I mean, this is a writer who, just like we talk about Chopin, Beethoven, 300 years from now, we should be talking about Dylan still. And so I think that's a really good thing that he's going to do. One of the things I want to read this to you that he said in a recent interview, Timothée Chalamet revealed that Bob Dylan's manager, Jeff Rawson, shared with him a 12-hour playlist of unreleased Dylan tracks from 59 to 64.
Wow.
So, someone made the point, he said, well, if you really have the Dylan aficionados, they probably already have cuts of these here like this. But talk a little bit about that, because this is something we've seen with Prince, we've seen with other people. I mean, the Beatles just released another song. you have a lot there. How much, first of all, talk about the treasure trove there, because, I mean, great writers just produce massive amounts. But as well, shouldn't there be, once an artist has passed away, shouldn't there be a recognition that, well, he didn't want this to really be released necessarily?
Right.
So shouldn't we honor that?
Well, the thing about Dylan, the contradiction with Dylan, is he's left some of his best songs off records. Like I remember the Blind Willie McTell, which is one of his greatest songs, was recorded during the Infidel sessions with Mark Knopfler. And if you ever hear any versions of just he and Mark, Bob's playing piano, Mark's playing guitar, they're phenomenal. It ended up in the Biograph, the 5 LP box set, which I got. Now you can get it in CDs now, but it came out in '85. And we heard this song. We go, why the hell didn't this song end up on Infidels? Also, there's a great song called Up to Me that he recorded when he did the New York recordings for Blood on the Tracks. Another great song that ended up, of course, on one of the bootleg series that came out. So he's not necessarily the judge of his greatest songs, but I think I've got a list somewhere of just the cover songs he's recorded live or in studio or just in demos, and it's like 800 songs, right? Folk, blues, and jazz, which is the one thing I love about Bob Dylan. He is a real student of music. I mean, he knows his stuff, and I don't know. I'm curious enough where I'll listen to just about anything, But I see your point. But I'd love to hear what Rosen let Timothy hear. Truthfully,
well, I don't know. Maybe the Chalamet release. Who knows? Like that. I agree with you when you talk about the greatest artist. It's surprising. I mean, Neil Peart, the great drummer from Rush.
Yeah.
If you watch their biography, he goes and talks about how in the mid-1990s, well established as probably one of the greatest rock drummers of all time.
Yeah.
He went to jazz school. And he learned how to play drums like a jazz player would.
Yeah.
Because and he talks with his jazz instructor, and he says there's a difference between ding 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 and ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
And here is one of the greatest musicians drummers of all time being able to say that. And that I needed to go back and learn something at a much later point in life. I think the greatest musicians, hands down, are the ones that never stop. And there's that love of music. They never feel like they plateau out. They never feel like they've reached the top. And they're always, like you said, I'm going to go into do jazz, or I'm going to do reggae, or I'm going to bring in some of these other things that experiment with this and really understand the music and what makes that music individual. And Dylan, of course, checks all those boxes.
Well, and, Infidels, a record that I've, always loved, and had Sly and Robbie. The rhythm section from Jamaica on it. The greatest bass player and drummer in reggae were the rhythm section for Infidels, which I always loved. Me personally, when I found a list of, I was in my grandfather when he was his last few days. I was in his hospital room on the north side of Virginia, kitty corner from the Lynott Clinic, and I put a list of the styles of music, because I knew I was moving to Minneapolis, that I wanted to study guitar-wise. And it was everything from free jazz, acoustic blues, acoustic ragtime, electric space music, ECM guitar players, bebop jazz, bluegrass, flat picking. I had a list. And when I moved to Minneapolis, I was studying with Tim Sparks from Rio Neato. I was taking lessons at the West Bank School of Music. When guitar players would come in and play the artist quarter, I would try to get a hold of them ahead of time, and I would meet them at their hotel rooms and pay them. And I'd bring my little cassette recorder and take lessons. And I look back at that list, and also when I hear my playing, let's say in 84 and 85, I go, oh my God, I need to get an app on my phone now that said, find your own lick. Just rediscover where your hot licks went to, because I was playing, 4 or 5 nights a week, but I was playing 4 or 5 hours a day. And over the years, it becomes kind of a job. I don't want to say loses its luster, but there's things you want to do besides play guitar. But now I'm looking back at it and go, I just found that list the other day, and I go, okay, Paul, it's time to get back on the horse and start practicing again.
Did you ever? I mean, okay, we all have a sick day. We all like this. Right? I mean, I love doing what I do, and there are some days I'm like, I don't want to go do this because I'm not feeling that well or stuff like this. Did you ever get tired of picking up a guitar and playing it? I mean, because I think the great players like yourself. There's always it's your long companion. It's your friend. This microphone's my friend.
Yeah.
You know, you find your friend, and it's your happy place. And sure, you might have times where you might not be as well with it, or might be playing another thing, but you always revisit it.
Well, Brownie McGee, who's a big hero of mine, who I learned a lot from the great acoustic blues cat, played the Piedmont style along with Sonny Terry, the harmonica player. He always used to say, my guitar is my weapon against the world. Mm-hmm. And the thing about the guitar is there's so many different types of guitar playing. There's classical guitar, nylon string. There's flamenco, nylon string. There's electric bebop. There's acoustic jazz. There's 12-string. There's Leo Kottke, John Fahey, Peter Lang, Americana fingerstyle guitar playing, and you could go on and on. There's so many, then you get into the really experimental stuff with like Derek Bailey and people like that, and then you can go to Randy Rhoads or Vernon Reid in Living Color. So occasionally the guitar, which is my lifelong friend. In fact, when I buy a new guitar, especially for some reason Telecasters, when I buy them, I put them in the corner of my bedroom so when I wake up in the morning, I can look at it. Because for me, the Telecaster, it's like the perfect woman. And like Keith Richards said, he'd sleep with his guitars because they're like, a female body. But the thing about the guitar is, when it's looking back at you, it's saying, you're never going to master me. Oh. You can love me and you can work with me, but you're never going to be able to play everything that everybody else can learn in a variety of styles. So it's always a work in progress. But that's the beautiful thing. It's a lifelong journey. You're never going to completely master all styles. So you just want to get as good as you can to be able to express what you're feeling at that time. And I think on a good night, I'm able to do that.
If my microphone could talk, I think it'd be like sighing exasperately.
Yeah.
Okay, fine, we'll give it another chance. That's like, all right, give it another go, college team try here.
But I got to say, though, man, I'm really happy about your Chicago show. Yeah. I've listened to radio my whole life as well. And you have a real certain joie de vivre and a sense of excitement that you don't get on a lot of other radio hosts.
Thank you.
And so you've got to, it's your thing, man, and you do it really well. I love listening to you, and I stream you when I'm up in Duluth. I listen to you in the car when I'm down here, and there's just you know who I miss. Are you old enough to remember Franklin Hobbs on the old CCO?
My great uncle was Cedric Adams, so
I
know a lot of the classics.
Yeah, and then and who? God, why am I forgetting the great name? Leigh Kamen on the Jazz Image. I learned a lot of what I do on my radio show, and we'll be celebrating 10 years of the Wall of Power Radio Hour, thanks to the fine folks, Chad and the fine folks here at AM 950, is listening to great radio, like the great, who is now George Norrie's doing, but Art Bell. Yeah. I loved Art Bell. There's something about the magic of radio that I've always enjoyed.
You are... Thank you. First of all, thank you. That's very appreciated. And by the way, the Wall of Power Radio Hour, Saturday nights at 6 p.m. right here on AM 950. You're a freaking treasure. You're an absolute treasure. You're important. And I'll say it like that. You're important.
Thank you.
And that is something.
I'd have several ex-girlfriends that would disagree with that, but keep going.
I've got a list out the door, my friend. I encourage you, if you're in Duluth, Wednesdays you're playing Blackwater?
Blackwater Lounge, and I 231 East Superior Street, right down the street from the North Shore Theater.
That's 6 to 8 o'clock on Wednesdays.
Yeah, no cover, and it's really it's one of the classiest joints in Duluth. I had played there when Sonny Earl and I would play the Blues Fest, and I played the very first one, and now they're like 34th annual. We would always, for the last 12 or 13 years, play there afterwards at night on Friday and Saturday nights. So I developed a really nice relationship with them. And then, about last May, they got a hold of me and said, would you be interested in doing a Wednesday night? And I said, absolutely. It's less than 10 minutes from my house. It's great, great food, great cocktails. The PA is there for any working musicians out there. You don't have to hump your gear every week in and out. And the clientele is great.
Paul Metsa. Paul, always one of my favorite hours every holiday. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Paul Metsa, once again, Wall of Power Radio Hour as well, 6 p.m. Saturday nights. And like I said, he's important. You need to be listening to him. Go buy his music. Go buy his books. We'll take a break, wrap up the show when we do return. It's the Matt McNeil Show right here on AM 950.